All right, so we understood by now what is it that we want to take a backup, how often do we want to take a backup, how to implement that in our organizational backup solution, and the key thing from time to time to monitor our backups. But technically speaking, how do we back up? So we have two options to back up our Sisense solution. The first is to take a complete backup, system backup, that will take a backup of our Elastic Cubes or MongoDB, frontend, plugins, everything that we have in our Sisense solution. And the second option is to just back up our application database, our MongoDB. So let's talk about the first technique, this complete system backup. This is done by using a shell utility, also known as the Sisense CLI. So this is the first option that I want to introduce Sisense to. This is my Sisense deployment, and you can see that I can have a look at all of my Sisense pods. To do that, I'm just running a simple get pod command, filtering by the Sisense namespace. For me to be able to access the CLI, I need to load that. So I want to do the following. I want to run a script that is available as a part of the installation called add completion ns Sisense. It will ask me to authenticate. So I'll just give it my username and password. And you see that I'm logged in successfully. That's how I log into the Sisense CLI. All right. The second thing that I want to do, no, actually, I want to show you a cool trick. If you can't access the add auto-completion for any reason, you're working on another machine that you're accessing your Sisense from, there is another option for you to do that. So let me just clear out the screen, and I want to show you all of my pods. Now you see I have my management pod. What I want to do first is I want to access that. So let me do the following. I want to do a kubectl Kubernetes control. And then I want to do the following. I want to execute inside the management pod. So I'll do a first, actually, I want to filter on the Sisense namespace, and I want to execute on that. And I want to tell it that I want to do a bash one, right? So this is how I got into the management pod. You see that the location is Sisense manager. In etc folder, you see that I have a script called Sisense sh. I want to show you another way that you can access the CLI if you don't have this add autocompletion script on this server. All right, another way, and for me to be able to do that, I want to again display the list of pods. So I'll just do kubectl get pods minus n Sisense. And you see that I have here the management pod. All right, this pod is super important because it contains the secrets. So kubectl, and again, filtering by Sisense namespace, I want to execute inside a pod, so I'll do an exec, sorry. And I want to tell it that I'm entering in a bash. So it bash. You can see here that I'm inside the management pod. And what I want to do is I want to go into the etc folder, right? And what I want to do is I want to run a script called Sisense sh. Ran. Now that I've loaded the script, you'll see that I have a new function called login Sisense. This function expects to get the URL of your application, so I'll just enter that. And again, much like before, it asks me to authenticate. And I'm logged in successfully. That's how you access the Sisense CLI. All right, going back to my slide, you can see that the next step that I want to do is to run a command line inside the CLI. So the command line is called system backup. All right, just showing you that, and this command line supports full auto-completion. And what I want to do, actually, for the sake of this demo, I don't want to do that inside of the management pod, so let me exit that. I want to do that from the Bastion host directly. So what I want to do is I want to run SI, which I should have because I ran the add completion script before. SI system, you see that it I just did a tab to run auto completion, and then you see that I can take a backup command. So SI system backup, and now again, running the tab to see what available arguments it can accept, you see that it can accept a include farm or not. This flag is actually super important. The include farm flag allows me to take the option to take a backup of my ElastiCubes, including the data. Now, this is important because talking about recovery strategy, we need to understand whether our organization can tolerate the build time. Obviously, taking backups without the ElastiCube data is very slim because it's just backing up the application database, the plugins, but those are lean things. The key thing that consumes the majority of the storage are the DB farms, the built ElastiCubes. So by default, we actually do not take the DB farms as a part of the backups. We just take the schemas. It means that upon a recovery, the first thing that we need to do is to run a build of all of our ElastiCubes. Again, it is a recovery strategy question, not a technical one. If our organization can tolerate the time to build, it is leaner, it is cost-effective to take it without the DB farms. If the organizations require a faster pace, then we probably should take include backup. All right, so I'm going to take it without the include backup. And you see that I have some other configuration, some other flags to pass on, like add extra paths. This allows me, and you can read through that in our public documentation, the ability to take specific paths from the shared storage and add those to be backed up as well. So I'm just going to take the most common system backup that I can run, and you see that it started. Now, what does it mean that it started? It means that I have a pod for backups that is now running. You see that it started, it creates the container, and if I run it again, probably you see that it's in a running state. This should take, I don't know, depending on your data size, right? It depends on whether you specify to include data or not, if you have a very large MongoDB or not. The MongoDB size depends on your the number of dashboards, the number of shares, the number of users that you have, so various elements. And you see that the backup started. And one thing that I want to demonstrate is if I want to monitor the backup process, it's a pod, right? And in Kubernetes, pods have logs. So I can just do the following: kube control, again, filtering on size and namespace like I always do. And instead of get pods, I want to do it logs. Logs always dump the log of a specific pod. I don't have to mention that it's a pod for a specific pod, right? And you see that actually, I think that the backup is completed because I see service backup exited with code 0. Code 0 means success. So if I'll do a get pods again, you see that it's completed. All right, so now I have a backup that was completed. And you can see here that the pod is in completed state. I want to take the time and download that. How do I do that? First, let's demonstrate how to do that from the UI. So I want to go to my application and I want to go to the admin panel. Just do that. And you see that before version 2021.5, when going to admin and system management, I used to have here this file browser option. Now in 2021.5, we've hidden that by default for security measures, but I want to enable that quickly. So I'll go to configuration. Let it load for a second. And then I won't see that in the base settings. So let me just quickly tap Sisense logo 5 times or 6 until I see the base configuration as well. Now, while this is loading, I want to filter on a specific value. So let me search your file, and you see that I have file management, and I'll toggle this on. I'll say base. It will ask me to restart a few things, but to be fair, it doesn't really technically need that. So I'll go to admin panel again, and I'll refresh this page. And what you will see is, all right, and you see that the file management is now available. Clicking on that shows you the new file manager. Again, that was introduced in 2021.5. So if you're in any version before that, you'll see Droppy. Now this is a new user interface. And under system backups, you will see the backup that I just now took. I can download that, put it in some external repository, and that's it. So that's one technique that I can take a backup and take the backup and move it to external repository using a backup that I started using SI system backup. Another technique is to download that from the OPT Sisense storage. All right. The backups, this is a single node, so this is actually OPT is mounted. And I can go to OPT, Sisense, and this is the user interface for my storage manager. You can see that I can go to storage, and I can go to system backup, and here are all of the backups. Like you can do always, you can just copy this tar file to any external repository. You can schedule that. You can introduce a cron job to schedule that and to copy that externally. Actually, in our public documentation, there is a very nice script you can use to take the backup and to copy that to an external repository. Now let's talk about taking a backup just for the MongoDB. Right. So MongoDB, it is important to stress that we have two flavors of it. We can have a MongoDB in a replica set mode, whether you're using a multi-node, or you can have just a single node deployment. This is a single node setup. So when I do a kubectl get pods in the Sisense namespace, you'll see that I only have one MongoDB, Sisense MongoDB minus 0. Okay. So to take a MongoDB backup, you don't have to memorize that. There's a series of commands. This is all downloadable, and you can run that on your own environment. I'll just demonstrate that really quickly. There are actually two collections that I want to take a backup of. All right, so let me just do that quickly. Just taking the right date, so 7/7. All right, so the first command is Sisense execute into the MongoDB pod. All right, and there's the Mongo container, the MongoD. All right, I want to take a command. Before I did the bash command, now I want to take the command that is MongoDump, and for a specific database, the Prism WebDB. And I'm just going to give it the date of today is July 7th, so that's I want to do that. And the backup should be successful. You see, everything is written there. Again, that was for the WebDB. I want to do the exact same thing, only for another collection called the Prism config. One small note to be aware of: if you're using blocks, there's another database to backup. Right? I have the backup ready. Where is this backup? This backup is inside the container, and I want to copy that externally. So let me just do that again. It's another bash utility. Everything is going to be downloadable. Don't have to memorize that. I'm going to run a copy command. I don't want to execute inside a pod. I want to copy from a pod. Again, the name of the pod is MongoD0 because it's a single node. In a multi-node setup, you have to change that a bit. And then the backup is not DDNM, it's actually 7/7. That's important. Change. The container is MongoD container like before, and I want to copy that externally to MongoDump. All right, so now you see that I have a MongoDump 00 directory. I didn't have that before. Let me just go to that directory. And you see that I have two collections that I backed up. I can take that, I can make a tar out of that, and to upload that externally to your S3 buckets, to any shared storage that you may have that you are keeping your backups to. All right, so that's the technique of backing up just the MongoDB. Why would I want to do that? The MongoDB contains all of the application database. So that contains the dashboards, the Elasticube schemas, the live schemas, the users, the shares. It doesn't contain the plugins, for example, but the application database is quite a lot to back up in respect to how much value it can bring me. And I can use that in order to recover from many scenarios. Right, so this is a very valuable technique that you can use. So again, we demonstrated how to take a complete system backup or how to take just a MongoDB backup.